And we are live recording here, folks.
Back in the studio.
Podcast number dos. Still technically a test run.
Still technically a test run, but the first one went pretty well. This time we were a little more prepared. We got
not really. We spent like 10 minutes laying in our flat last night discussing what we were going to talk about today. So we're really not any more prepared than we were.
How long do you think Michael Jordan thinks about a game-winning shot before he shoots it?
A game-winning shot's different than the game.
Whatever, man.
Just saying. You know? Yeah.
Can we cut this and start? Let's start over. That was
once again
terrible.
I proved you wrong. I love it.
All right, be wrong. I'm wrong. Can we just start it over though? No, the Jordan thing was terrible.
It was terrible.
Now
we're gonna keep it now.
Oh, for fuck's
we're gonna keep it. I said we were live. That means there's no going back from this.
But we're not though. You're lying.
I know, but it's good practice for when we do go live and we're successful.
Okay.
When we're doing our cross country tour of different cities with different drugs.
Different cities, different drugs, different social circumstances, and obviously addiction hits every community in its own unique way. The pain is all still the same, but in different ways.
See, look at that. You just made up for the Jordan comment. That was beautiful.
Thanks, man.
Can't go better than that. Speaking of addiction, as we are chain smoking and throwing down coffee.
Right.
You know.
Well, this is what recovery is right now.
It is. Chain smoking and coffee.
Chain smoking and coffee,
apparently.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Andy, last night at the old flat, we were skimming around the old landscapes of our mind, trying to figure out what we were going to discuss today on this podcast. Growing in difficult times was the one.
Growing in difficult times is what we came up with. I was having, I don't know if you can call it a meltdown, full-on meltdown, but I was definitely dealing with some things, and I couldn't identify what the problem was. That's where the frustration really came in. I think I said it before, like if you don't know what you're fighting, how can you fight back? How can you deal with something if you're not aware of what it is? So yeah, after chatting a little bit, I calmed down, but we had a group this morning and I brought it up again, and it was brought to my attention by the counselor and also my friend Chris, who's also in the group. And I was kind of chasing a relationship. I was chasing an interaction with a female who we have zero connection. We were nothing compatible. She's a fine person, fantastic person, but there was just nothing there. And my frustration just kept building and building and building, and I couldn't understand why until it was brought to my attention that I'm having cravings, and I'm replacing one thing with the other. I'm seeking a pleasure. I know I can't use drugs anymore safely. I can't drink safely. So I'm chasing. It's almost like my brain tricked me. You know what I mean? I tricked myself into thinking that this was a healthy thing, when it's absolutely not. I'm in no condition to be in a good relationship at this point anyhow. But that's when she brought up the difference between happiness and pleasure, and I think that was a very valid point, because that's what drugs are. Drugs do not bring me happiness, but I got the two misconstrued. I got them mixed up, the difference between pleasure versus happiness. Pleasure is instantaneous. It's quick gratification. And just like drugs, that's what sex can be. That's, you know what I mean? But I got that confused because I liked the affection, I liked the attention, but it was simply filling a void and masking something that I was dealing with. And I'm not as far along in my recovery that I thought I was. I still think I'm making good progress, but there's a long way to go to get to a place where I'm happy with myself. I'm content with just being, where I don't need other people in like a fulfilling sense. Of course, you want good relationships, good friends, good people around you, but it's not necessary for me to feel good to get validation from another person. And that's what drugs did. They gave me an instant satisfaction. They gave me a pleasure, and that's it's tough. It's tough to just sit in my own skin. They say, like, once you do the steps and you continue to grow and really work on yourself, that'll develop. It'll come in time. It's going to take practice. And I kind of backdoored myself there. I thought that I was kicking ass at this, and everything's going great. I'm about to leave the village. I leave on Friday, and I thought I was a little more prepared than I actually am. And so I think that was perfect timing to kind of go through what I went through to get me back. To get me back grounded, to remind me how fragile I am right now, how vulnerable and how raw I still am. I got a couple months away from the drink and the drug, but that doesn't mean that I've developed to the man that I'm wanting to be.
Let's talk about this filling the void thing for a second. Because I feel like even, again, outside of drug addicts, every human being is doing something to fill a void. Whether you can use shopping, you can use exercise to do something when you're alone with yourself and you feel this emptiness and you want to fill it with something. So you're running around because there's so many people you see nowadays that do not want to be alone, that can't be alone, that you get in solitude and they freak out. And especially in drug addicts. But I mean, I feel like that's across the board. Definitely. So what do we do? What is, how do we get to this point of learning to love oneself?
I think it comes with practice is the obvious answer, but not losing faith, not losing hope, becoming unmotivated, and I think that can happen if that almost happened yesterday. I felt like I was falling backwards when really I just wasn't as far ahead as I thought I was. You're right. It seems to be kind of typical of our society now, like with Facebook and the social media. Nobody wants to be just by themselves. Yeah, yeah, exactly, right. And people won't really hold conversations in real life, but they will on Facebook. So we're kind of losing that human touch as a society. But like you said, especially for people like us, like we really need to pay attention to this stuff, because somebody who's normal, who's not like us, doesn't suffer from these afflictions, they can be on Facebook 10 hours a day. It might not be healthy, but their life's not going to fall apart because of that disconnect. Whereas us, we got to be ever vigilant. We always have to be on our toes. We always got to be paying attention to how we feel. And if things are going askew, we got to figure out why. And the answer may not come quickly. Yesterday, the answer didn't come quickly. But like, I've said before, and that I'm really big on prayer, and that's something that's very important to me. When I was having this meltdown yesterday, and I'm sitting in the room before you came back, and I'm kind of wanting to be miserable at that point. I'd given up trying to figure it out, and I wanted to be miserable. And coming from the back of my head, is this voice saying, "This is it, man. Like, this is good. This is growth. This is development." And that I didn't want to listen to that. I wanted to feel sorry for myself. I wanted to be angry and upset. But the fact of the matter is that I've been really working very hard at Horizon Village to learn how to grow as a person, and that was proof to me that it's been working. Because my inner voice isn't always motivating like that. My inner voice is not always telling me that I'm doing the right thing for the right reasons and to hang in there. I can be often cynical at times. And that kind of gave me a sense of peace. It gave me a sense of peace. And as fate would have it, you walked in the room about a minute after that. And once again, I just unloaded my day on you. And being the good bunkie that you are, you listened to me. And you gave me some good feedback. So I appreciate that. And that's one of the biggest gifts that I'm getting out of this recovery process, is that I'm getting some pretty good people placed in my life, and people that I need, and I've yet to experience any bad advice from you. I've bucked some of your advice. I'm not saying you're a guru by any means, but so far you've been on a pretty hot streak with some solid advice, so.
Cool. Let's take this 3 things I got here. Let's start with prayer.
Okay.
All right. Seeing that I'm not a person who hides the fact of my not the biggest fan of religion and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But why does prayer work? I feel like prayer can work. And I kind of feel like that comes from and connects with your whole inner voice thing as well. When you start saying something, say, for instance, a prayer. I hope this, I want this to happen, I deserve this. And you're throwing it out there over and over again. And I kind of take it back to the whole thing of that the whole energy thing. When it gets down to it, and that I know that's stupid, cliche saying of, oh, we're all energy, man. We're flowing one energy into the next. That doesn't even make any sense, but you know what I mean. And but when you keep repeating something positive over and over again, these positive affirmations, if you will, you slowly see a change. I've had it. It was an empirical thing in my life that I experienced. I was in jail, laying there, and I knew after a week of being in jail, laying in my cell alone for at least half a day, all these hours alone, that if I don't learn how to be positive, I don't learn how to change how I think, I'm going to fucking have a psychological breakdown. And I slowly would catch myself in these, whether it was a half hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours into these negative thought patterns that were just become heavier and heavier as each minute goes on. This weight just gets further and further upon you when you start stopping, catching yourself, becoming aware, consciously aware of, holy shit, I'm in this negativity. It's weighing me down. I need to stop because I deserve to be forgiven. I deserve to be loved. I deserve to be accepted. And you start saying that over and over again. Then all of a sudden, within 3 months of doing that, up to this point, I've gone on 6 months of no drugs other than caffeine and nicotine and sugar. And I knew there was one more in there. And after almost 6 months of this, within 5 minutes now, I catch myself talking negatively and like, wait, hold on. I'm not going down this path. And that kind of relates back to the third point that you brought up, is the self-pity thing. We have this ongoing thing where we want to hold on to self-pity, where we just want to feel sorry for ourselves constantly. And it's like, why do we love that as humans? It's almost like part of our identity. Like, we have it, it comes upon us, and like, no, we're not going to let it go. And so I've been trying to figure out, well, how do I take that and then turn that into positivity, where positivity can come in and I can hold on to it and not let it go. And I think it's got to be a healthy wave, because if somebody who's positive all the time and happy all the time, you're like, something's wrong,
It's a lunatic.
Yeah, something's wrong. So what's going on with that? But we have to, I feel, develop this discipline of being able to become positive, being able to catch ourselves and know. And it becomes, and everybody's in different stages. We've all done, especially as addicts, we've all done fucked up things to hurt people, to steal from people who love us and care about us. In my case, people who are my biggest support systems I've hurt the most right now, in the past, that are just want nothing but the best for me. They don't care about the material things that I took from them. They just want me better. And I was able to take that. Like, if these people that I hurt and I've done so many, such big wrongs to, still love and support me, there has to be something there, even if I don't see it right now, something there that is good, that is beautiful, that is, again, deserves to be loved, accepted, and forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is I think it's so simple that we don't like to think it's so simple. Here, we'll go to a Christian thing. A good analogy is, when they talk about God's grace, I think it's Ephesians 2:8-9, for by grace we've been saved through faith, not of works, which is the biggest thing. You can't earn it. You can't earn this grace from God. You can't earn it at all. So no matter how many good deeds you do, you don't get God's grace because of that. You don't lose God's grace because you've done bad things. It's just there. And we feel as individuals that we need to work for this thing, that we need to do something to earn it. But it's, it's always there. Like this love inside of us, this love that we deserve is there constantly. And it's nothing we can do to earn it. It's something so simple that we have it already. But we feel like we need to work for it. But I feel like it's just, we got to learn to recognize it's just there. And no matter what we've done, we deserve to be loved, accepted, and forgiven.
I think I'm glad you pointed that out, because that's something that I'm seeing, and I like that you called it God's grace, and that it's always there, because being that I've done a lot of the things that I've done, not all awesome things, some really hurtful things. I've hurt a lot of really good people, including myself. And I had this idea that I need to, the pendulum's been swinging one way for so long that I need to overcompensate and be good and try to do good deeds, and then that's how I'm going to get back on the level. But you're right, that level never changes. Call it God's grace, call it the balance of the universe, whatever you'd like to refer to it as. But I get a lot of peace out of that idea, and it's something that I've been practicing, that it's just everything is okay. I'm the thing that needs to be worked out. My environment, everything's going to be fine, but it's me that has the war going on inside of myself, and they say, a big part of it is we got to forgive ourselves. And how do I do that? How do I just sit back and be like, it's okay, man. All those, all this stuff you stole, people you lied to, people you've cheated and really screwed over, is the best way to put it, I think. How do I just come to terms with that and say it's okay? Because the fact is, it's not okay. So really all I can do is just accept it as events that have happened, decide that I don't want to do that anymore, and work to achieve that goal. Work to achieve not being a shitty person anymore, not being selfish, self-centered, as you like to put it, Andy-oriented. And I love that you threw that out there, because I'm always talking about these little nuggets, these omens that get thrown in my day. And that's one of them. That's one of them because that rings in my head quite often. And it reminds me that, yes, I am a selfish person. I care more about myself than other people. And one of my goals in recovery is to balance that out. Like, of course, I still need to worry about myself. I need to take care of myself. You know, that's just how we are going to survive. But I also need to consider the people around me, other people's wants, desires, and needs. And now I may not always be able to meet those needs, but I can try. I can try to make my presence a pleasant one to other people, you know, instead of just self-seeking, trying to make my day better and fuck whoever else is around. And it's a struggle sometimes. You know, I've got 36 years of practicing selfishness. And like I said in the last one, I just want that to melt away. I want that to be gone. I walk through the door of an AA meeting and all that just goes away. And now I'm saved and I'm glowing and I'm a beacon of spirituality. That's not the case. It's like any other struggle in life. It needs to be worked at. It needs to be practiced. There's going to be days when I'm feeling terrific and I'm really kind and altruistic and just a good dude. And there's going to be other days where I'm feeling knotted up and I kind of start getting that fuck everybody else thing ticking in my head. And like you said, I really need to be aware of that. And if I'm aware of it, then I can work on it. You know, and if I practice that every day, I do believe that it's going to become easier. It's going to become more natural. And the bad days may not be so bad.
What do you think of this right here? A quote by Alfred Korzybski. God may forgive your sins, but your nervous system won't.
Ooh, I like that.
That's huge. It goes on to say, when we've done something wrong, in quotes, we register it in our nervous system. An injury to someone else might be accompanied by guilt. A mistake that costs us something we want might have sadness attached to it. When we've done something we regret, we often connect it to a limiting belief like, I'm always saying the wrong things, or I'll never be able to cover my bills. We try to forgive ourselves for something without releasing the underlying emotion or belief we've attached to it. Forgiveness just doesn't take. No matter how hard you try to forgive, you continue to beat yourself up for whatever happened because your nervous system tells you to.
Mm.
So it's this, I like this release of emotions and beliefs. So we have this thought that comes up, I did this to this person, an emotion comes with it, and this belief that we are a terrible person also follows it. So we're constantly battering ourselves over these mistakes that we've made. And it goes on to say, you know, what do we do about it? Identify the limiting belief or negative emotion you've attached to what you're trying to forgive in yourself. Release that first using the process like the mental emotional release process, and you'll find to forgive yourself is not that difficult. So, I mean, finding and identifying the beliefs and emotions that we have about things that we've done wrong. And I think I kind of take that back to like, we don't ever do that with positive things. Like, I can think of all the amazing, beautiful things I've done, and it's not something I attach to so much as I do something shitty. Like, why do our minds do that? Why do we just sit there and only remember the shitty parts of what we've done and not the good things? That kind of trips me out. Like, like you said, how do you get over this? I want to look up what this mental emotional release is. I've never heard of it.
You know, I just want to comment on that real quick. I think one of the reasons, like, we're conditioned to not give ourselves pats on the back or give yourself the old attaboy because now you're full of yourself. You're egotistical if you do those kinds of things. If you congratulate yourself for the positive things that you do, now you're full of yourself. And I don't think that's necessarily true. It's okay to praise yourself when you do something good, and not just feel good about it, but you can lay your head down at night and saying like, hey man, I was good today. I helped somebody move. I helped whatever. You know what I mean? I gave somebody money who was looking for food or whatever. And I think that we don't like the negative things that we do, and so I don't know, here's kind of a weird thought, but maybe to prove to myself that I'm not a bad person, I need to scold myself twice as hard when I do bad things. So my judgment on that action is negative. So even though I did that action, I know I'm a good person because I'm judging it as a negative action. But what that does is it sets me into like kind of a whirlwind of now I'm only focusing on negatives. Like you were saying, we rarely focus on the positive, we'll focus on the negatives. And now I just get caught up in that. And even if I'm not doing negative actions, I'm having negative thoughts. So one way or another, negativity is existing throughout most of my day. So to try to turn that around, obviously negative actions need to stop. We can't keep stealing and screwing people over. And I don't think I necessarily have to dedicate my days to altruism and, becoming a saint, because that's just not realistic, especially not in this point in time. But I do have the opportunity and the ability to change my negative thoughts to positive ones. And that's where I use prayer quite a bit. When I just can't get out of a funk like yesterday, I start praying on it, and it's just like, come on, man, like, help me out here. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm lost. I feel helpless. And that's when that little voice pops in my head now. And this is a new thing, but it pops in. It's just, hang in there, man. Hang in there, kid. And it's almost like a parent not giving the explanation why things are going to be okay, but just that parental voice, that soothing voice saying, it is going to be okay. Just trust me. Trust me on this. And that's why I feel I have a very strong connection with, my understanding of a higher power. And it's been helping me out a lot. And on days that I get knotted up, I notice I'm not thinking about that connection. I'm thinking that Andy's kind of controlling Andy's world. And Andy didn't do a terrific job of that up until this point. There have been some highlights and stuff, financial stability and some, nice living quarters and vehicles and whatnot. But those all went away because my thinking and stuff didn't change. So therefore, my feelings aren't going to change, and therefore my behaviors aren't going to change. That's that CBT triangle that they're always talking about. Thoughts become feelings, feelings become behaviors, and it all wraps in together. So it's a process. It's a slow process sometimes.
It is.
I love the days when I'm feeling good, but who doesn't? I know it's kind of obvious and silly silly to even say, but to me, it's like I need to be aware of those too, like the extreme highs. When I'm feeling really good, that's out of the comfort zone as well. Just like when I'm feeling extremely negative, it's okay to be down a little bit. Life is peaks and valleys, but it's how I handle those. And a big part of that is trying to change my thinking to a more optimistic, positive outlook. So when things are low, it's like, I'm just in a low point right now, and I'm going to swing out of it.
Yeah, and this, going back to the whole negative thinking, and caused by, you said, like, negative actions, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So we keep having this negative thinking. And something I've shared with you a lot that's been going through my mind is those two voices that we have in our head. These two voices that, there's one that just makes judgments and statements, and then there's this other voice that, criticizes it. Is just like, wait, you don't really believe that. You don't want this. You don't do this. And it's taking those two voices, and anybody who doesn't think that they have these voices, all you got to do is pay attention for 2 seconds. Anytime you think, there's something that is said, and then there's something that is observed, that observes that what is said, and then comments on that. So you have this, and it can even go on farther. You can have, again, depending on what you're doing, you could have 3 voices and the one judging. So I started looking like, so what voice am I? Whatever that means, essentially, what voice am I? And being this judgy thing that's up here in my head that is saying, wait, do you really believe that? Do you really want to do that? Do you really feel that way? And in order to get to something that is beautiful and awesome and technically truthful, is to have those two voices agree with each other, essentially. I feel, and it's been a weird process starting to do that when I just say things like, because I'm such a manipulator, and I do it sometimes. I'm so automatic with it. I mean, even before my addiction, I could always see myself acting, saying, and doing certain things because I'm thinking down the road, what can I get from this person? And I'm, I've said to you before too, every drug addict says they're good at manipulating, but I'm like weeks ahead of time. Like, all right, next week, I'm going to want this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to need this, so I'm going to start now.
It's an investment.
I got this in the bag, yeah. And so I've been, watching these two voices. What am I doing? Am I really being honest? Do I really want that? And I think once you start finding, no, I shouldn't do this because this is not right. This is wrong. I'm being manipulative. And it doesn't have to be anything over something really serious. It can be, trying to get, $5 from somebody to get, gas or a Monster, whatever it is. What are my intentions here? How am I acting this way because of this? Am I saying this way because I want this? And once you start getting those two voices going together and agreeing with each other and not questioning each other and arguing, I feel like, again, you come out of this negative action, this negative emotion, this negative thought processing that gets you to like this form of self-truth. And you become living positive. Because, when you wake up in the middle of the night and something hits you and you start worrying about it, it's usually something that needs to be fixed, something that you need to take care of. Like, for instance, the other night I woke up and I took a dollar out of my mom's purse to get a Monster on the way home, back to Horizon Village, not home, Horizons Village. And but I came back the next day and told her, because I woke up in the middle of the night, and the first thing that hit me is like, that's addict behavior. That's old behavior. It's just taking money out of, and I know she wouldn't give a shit. Like if I yelled up the stairs here before I walked out the door, hey, can I take a dollar purse? She'd be like, yes. But I just took it instead. And I woke up and I was like, all right, well, that's something I need to take care of today, because that's why I'm feeling anxious. That's why I'm up right now thinking about it and can't fall back asleep, because I feel like this is just bringing back old behavior. So starting to do that with all these things in our life that we wake up, open our eyes. Oh, you know what? Even if that person, even if you said something to somebody, you woke up, you felt bad about it, take care of it. Even if that person didn't care when you tell them, it's gone. It's off your mind, and you're getting more positive thinking. So I feel like we have these things that we do that end up being, we'll just call them, for this lack of a better term, negative roadblocks. And so we're going down, driving down the street, and all of a sudden there's a roadblock because we did something, said something, or we're trying to manipulate something and to our benefit. That's not truthful, that we're being dishonest about. We're trying to form our reality into what we want it to be, and to be able to get what we want out of it. And I think it's, that's where it starts, I think, with the whole, positive thinking, living in truth, and not having this weight over you all the time of feeling negative about shit.
And I like that you pointed out that it's not the magnitude of the action, like when you're talking about a dollar. You're not stealing somebody's mortgage or their car or anything like that. But it's not the magnitude that matters, it's the action itself. Because any infraction is an infraction nonetheless. And it's probably a lot easier to catch the minor things than it is, because once you're into the big shit, now you're in deep. And it's a lot harder to pull yourself out of that quicksand than it would be for the minor things. So I'm glad that you pointed that out. It is important that we own that shit right away. Even just a negative word to somebody. Maybe it didn't affect them, but if you think in your heart that it was wrong and it was an incorrect thing to do to that person, then yeah, we do need to fix that, or at least take some kind of action and try to fix it. We might not be able to save the world with every, attempt that we try to correct our wrongs, but we have to get in the habit of trying, because you're not going to hit a home run every time, but you can try.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to that incremental growth, as we talked about in the last podcast. Of just taking a dollar but catching it at a small little thing and changing it, and then going on to the next thing. What can I change right now that I don't like? What can I change about myself that I just don't want nothing to do with? And something that's just there, something that's more simple, and then you get it done, and you go on to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and the next thing you know, you look back 6 months, 6 years, 16 years, 26 years. And then you're like, holy shit, I don't even remember who that person was. I can't believe that was me then.
Right.
And it's just, I think that's how you see so much growth in yourself is, comparing to yourself who you were yesterday, not to who somebody else is today, as I like to say.
Right. I like that, because it is a habit. There's a Vince Lombardi speech that I love to listen to, and it's called Winning is a Habit. It's not a sometime thing, it's an all the time thing. And it's regardless of what you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to accomplish, you got to practice it. And if being positive is something that I need to accomplish or want to accomplish in my life, I need to practice that. And it could be like I like holding doors for people, because it's a minor thing that I can do that I think is a nice thing to do. And if that person doesn't say thank you, I very loudly say you're welcome, to point out that I'm nice and they're a dick.
I have a saying for that.
What is it?
I think I was about 20, working down in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and I was doing outside sales for these contractor suppliers, and my boss, the outside sales guy who hired me, we were moving a few things, and we ended up going out to lunch, and I held the door open for somebody, and I kind of just said, I was like, oh, you're welcome. And I remember he said to me, and I'll never forget it, he was like, and just this gentle, calm voice, if you're holding the door open for somebody to get a thank you, you're holding it open for the wrong reasons.
Ooh. See, I like that. You know what I mean? But that's one of those minor things that I can correct, because you're right. You should do a nice thing just to do it, not because you're going to get a high five or a pat on the back. In your spirit, you can give yourself a little bit of hey, that was a nice thing that I did there.
I think that's necessary. Yeah, I think you should be doing that.
But to fish for the compliment, it kind of makes that positive action, like it negates it, and then it also can possibly turn it into a negative thing. Because now I'm kind of choked. Like, do you not see what I just did for you? And I know you saw it, so why aren't you thanking me? Why aren't you praising me? And it's like that's falling right back into a negative thought pattern. And that could turn into some negative behaviors.
I think what you just said is not only something we should do sometimes, we should do all the time. When you said, say, good job to yourself when you do that. And I spent a lot of time thinking that was being prideful. I was mistaking that for being prideful. So I would shove that aside and it would become an expectation, not a, hey, good job, Sean. It was a, hey, you need to do this. You should do this. And so when you don't do that, it comes back negative thinking. When you don't reward yourself for those little things and say, hey, good job. I did good today,
Right.
I made my bed. I cleaned my room. I did good. It was a good day. Even though the rest of the day sucked. I came home to a clean room and a made bed.
And a made
that was
bed.
Nice.
Exactly.
Something so simple. But again, you make your bed every day and you don't come home and say, oh, I made my bed. Good job. Eventually you come home, your bed's not made, and you're like, you suck. Why didn't you make your fucking bed this morning?
Right.
And then negative thinking comes back in again.
Yeah.
It's a constant cycle. Constant cycle.
It is. And that's one thing that I like about recovery, being in the rehab and also at these 12-step meetings, is that I'm always reminded of that. I'm always reminded of those kind of things to pay attention what's going on in me, inside me. What are my thoughts right now? And we all have like crazy, bizarre thoughts. You know what I mean? Like, what if I just drove off this bridge real quick while you're driving? I don't mean those kind of thoughts, like irrational ones, but negative thoughts towards other people. You know what I mean? And I don't think I necessarily need to dig super deep into it, but just catch myself. And if I can see why I'm thinking that, like they say, how do they say? Like if you see somebody that you don't particularly like, or there's something about that person that you don't like, it's quite possibly a reflection of something that you don't like about yourself. So that's a good opportunity to be like, okay, well, why don't I like that person? Because it seems like I should, you know what I mean? We're a lot alike. We like the same music, whatever. And that's a good opportunity to identify something in myself that I may not have seen had I not noticed that same behavior or characteristic in another person. So this is what I mean about those omens, those little nuggets that get thrown around. And if I pay attention, I'll see them. And they're all like, it's like in like a video game. You remember you playing Mario Brothers and the mushrooms pop up and you get an extra 500 points or an extra life, those kinds of things. They're all over the place. We just got to look for them, And then when we find them and we utilize them, it's like, well, that was pretty great. And sometimes they don't feel so terrific. Sometimes can't think of an example, but it can be a negative thing too. With a positive outcome. It could be something that doesn't make me feel good, but now I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to do that again, or I need to work on that to prevent myself from saying that again. You know what I mean? Swearing in public. When we were at that meeting the other day, and that guy came over to remind me that I'm in front of a church and I'm talking in front of a lady, and I shouldn't be using that kind of language. Now, he was really kind in the way he did it, and I didn't take it as an attack on my character or anything like that, but it made me feel crummy. I was like, wow, that was not a good thing you were doing. Like, you were using vulgar language. I don't even remember what I was saying. But it was inappropriate. And so out of that negative feeling, I can grow something positive. And I find myself trying to watch my language. It's a work in progress, but from being as foul-mouthed as I was, even as a child, that carried into being, adulthood. So now it's something else that I can pay attention to. It's more room for growth. And that in and of itself is motivating. Whenever I see that there's more room for growth, it's like, all right, let's get after it. You know what I mean? It's exciting to know that, like, hey, this is something that I can do and there's room to improve in it. Who wants to take on a project that they can't do? If somebody said, here's a hammer and some nails, build a house, I wouldn't know where to begin. But if they said, hey, just build this birdhouse, that's something I can accomplish. And so I get excited about the little things that I can build on. And then over time, it will be that house. It will be that mansion. And I look forward to that. I look forward to the person that I'm going to be if I continue on this path. But I try not to look too far ahead. I try not to focus on the top of the mountain. I'm just trying to watch my feet right now, make sure I don't slip on the loose rocks, and it might be muddy. And, sometimes it starts raining and you got to just hunker down and set up camp there for the night and wait for that storm to pass, because there's nothing you can do about it. And then once that storm passes, you climb out of your tent, you're a little stiff, you stretch up and get back to hiking.
Incremental growth.
Incremental growth.
Yeah. I mean, I love that analogy you use about building the house. You throw me the hammer and nails. I'm like, how the hell do I build this house?
Right.
Plumbing, friggin'
the electrical.
drywall,
There's so much to it.
I mean,
right?
the list goes on. I have no idea how to do, but I start learning how to build small things, a birdhouse.
Right.
I start learning how to use hammer and nails correctly. I start learning how to measure and write down, the mathematics of it, the house and the angles and the designs that I need to come up with. Yep. And they get better and better and better and better. But you get these grandiose ideas of, all right, I want to be up here when you're way down here. And you're trying to make this gigantic jump up to the top when you need a ladder. I think we used the ladder in the last podcast.
I think we did, yeah. And
taking each step at a time.
Yeah, and those aren't realistic goals to go from the bottom to the top overnight, and I need to be okay with that. Same thing like I was saying in the last podcast about just meeting a girl who's got a lot of money and her family's money, and I just fall into some cake job that way without putting in, time over the years of developing whatever career I may go into to earn it on my own. It's okay to have help along the way. When we were talking about the house, and you're saying like the plumbing and the electrical and stuff, you could be the greatest carpenter in the world. You still need help from the plumber. You still need help from the electrician. Another wonderful thing about the 12-step program is there's that fellowship that surrounds it and the people that are willing to help you. When I was having a really hard time in a meeting yesterday, they sent a phone list around. And it just so happens that gentleman who came to correct my language at that meeting when I was speaking real foul happened to be at that meeting, and his number's on that list. So now I have access to some pretty awesome people and people I respect and I aspire to be to. Through really no action of my own. All I had to do was speak up and say what I'm going through. I'm getting ready to leave this rehab. I'm a little nervous to go out into the world. I felt kind of helpless at the time and a little bit alone. But by the time I left that meeting, I didn't feel alone anymore. And I think I shared that with you last night in our room, that as knotted up as I am and uncomfortable as I am, I don't feel alone. And that was incredible because addiction's a very lonely place. And that was part of one of the worst parts, about my active use was the loneliness. You don't find a lot of quality people that want to hang out with a crackhead. So the people that I was around were just other people in the trap house, and there's no meaningful connection there. There's no friendships. You got your pile that I'm trying to get. I got my pile that you're trying to get, and it's just the whole scene is bad. So it's a very bleak existence. And what an amazing thing that we can come out of that world and step into a new world, and there's people willing to guide us along the way. It gets a little tricky though, because some people who are real eager to help you are not necessarily good people. So that's where you got to, a little bit of judgment calls come into place. But I don't know about you, but for me, it's tough to tell the difference because I can't really trust my instincts yet. I can't really trust my judgment, like this guy's good, this guy's not. How do I know? I guess it's a little bit of trial and error. And then when things don't work out, don't get overwhelmed by it and feel too defeated,
Yeah, that's being overwhelmed is, I think, another key. I love what you said about how there's some people who are there maybe not out for your best interests that you have to be aware for, because there's so many things in between, coming from step 1 to step 2 where people are going to get in your way and sway things around and try to use you for different things, and being alert, knowing when to say no, knowing when to say yes.
Right.
I think that's another big thing too, learning to say no. But I kind of like how you to kind of swing it back to, again, our main topic of growing through the troubled times. When you said that, like these shitty times that we have from, we always want to get back and relate it back to the self-pity thing. We want to just hold on to self-pity instead of being aware. And there's two things, after my brother and sister died, people say the most stupid things to you, and they try to make things, it's ridiculous. But, after going through that experience of, death, being so close to home, like there's only two things I couldn't come out and just tell people when they say that. One is don't forget to cry. That deep weeping is just so healthy and just feels good. It's just a release. Even if you solve nothing from it, you just feel lighter afterwards. But the second was to, as you're going through this struggle and this pain and this suffering that is just weighing you down, and you could be flat on your stomach, to do your best to pick up your head, open your eyes, and learn from it. What can I learn from this experience? What can I change? What can I figure out that I'm supposed to be doing throughout this whole time? And I think that's so important. A clinical psychologist I love always talks about burning off dead wood. And he said you might have a lot of dead wood when you start working on yourself and becoming self-aware. And it's going to suck trying to burn it all off. It's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. It's going to be tough. It's going to be just, you're going to have to learn how to be strong through it. But when that wood is gone and crumbles off of you and turns into ash, it feels great. You start really growing from it. You start really learning at a faster pace. And that's the thing. I think that's why why a lot of us turn to drugs. We look at ourselves, we see these things that aren't right, that need to be fixed, that we need to change, and it becomes overwhelming. And now how do I get rid of this without actually getting rid of it?
Right.
And, here we go. Well, let me just take this hit. Let me just do this line. Let me just put this needle in my arm.
Let me just do this one, and I'll figure it out
And
after.
I'll figure it out after.
I know this is only a temporary fix, but that's what I need right now. Lighten the load a little bit. Let me do this one, and I'm going to figure out after. I always plan that the long hauls come in after this one. That's when I'm going to get into the long-term solution after I do this one. Because the fact of the matter is that it's scary. It's scary to face a lot of things, and I think it's important that I remind myself that it's not going to do me in. It's not going to kill me. And like you said with that dead wood, man, it's heavy sometimes. And I think we'd be fools if we didn't utilize those difficult times and make the most out of it. You might feel like, your emotions are kicking the crap out of you, life's beating you down real hard, but use that as conditioning, and then when I get through those kind of times, a lot of the times with help from other people and good positive feedback, and sometimes just a friend to say, hey, man, can I get you coffee or something, man? Like, there's nothing I can tell you that's going to make you feel better, but I'm here for you. That kind of stuff is so motivating. And then when you come out of that hard time, life might be good for a couple days, a week, a month, but then you're going to hit a new hard time. And I'll be able to think back and be like, that last thing was pretty tough. This one might be tougher or equally as tough or not as tough, but I know I can get through some tough stuff. And with each encounter with these hard times and growing from them, I get the confidence in my ability to deal with those hard times. And that's a beautiful thing, man. That keeps my faith in the long haul, but with short-term goals. Let me just get through this. Instead of let me do this next hit and then I'll deal with shit. No, let me deal with this shit. And then when I come out of it, I might be exhausted, but you know what? I made it out. I made it through this little rough patch.
Yeah, again, it goes back. That reminds me just incremental growth. When you gain more confidence as you go. Like, you try to get a child to go into this big crowd of other kids, and they don't want to do it. They're nervous. So you say, all right, well, go 10 feet closer. And the child goes 10 feet closer, gets scared, comes back. Okay, good job. Now go 15 feet closer. And they get closer and closer, and they build confidence in each step because they get closer and closer to this final stage of playing with the other kids at the playground. And eventually they're running around playing, and you can't keep them from, they're crying when you want them to stop.
Right.
And so it's just that incremental growth. Just you go forward. You reward yourself. You come back, maybe chill out. You go further forward. You come back, you chill. You go further and further and further. If you immediately try to plop, I'm going to say it again, aim lower if you're not getting to what you want to be. If you immediately try to drop the child on the playground, they're going to freak out and run. They're going to break down and cry. But you can, let's go halfway then. So you're aiming lower. You're going backwards a little bit. Essentially, you're going backwards to go forward. Because you have to take these smaller steps to get to where you want to be.
I think it's also important, too, to not assume that just because I'm making steps in the right direction, that I'm going to get the outcome that I want. I might have these high hopes for this miraculous end to whatever. Okay, if I'm going through a tough patch and I tell myself, if you just tough it out, things will be good. Everything's going to be fine. And then what if it's not fine? What if I get kicked in the balls again by life? You know what I mean? But I need to learn to be okay with that. And eventually it will clear up, like they say, what is it? The sun still rises even when it's raining. Eventually the clouds will part, man, and things will be okay. So it's important that I don't get discouraged, no matter what it's thrown at me. Sometimes it's heavy. Sometimes I make a mountain out of a molehill, and sometimes it really is a mountain, and that's okay too. And I'm learning that, like those stressors, those mountains and stuff, it's not going to kill me. It might beat the crap out of me, but it's important that I, keep that in my head that I will get through this and have a lot of resources to help me do so.
How do you get to the top of that mountain? One step at a time.
One step at a time, baby. I like it. So cheesy, but so true.
It is.
It's so true. My mom always told me, like, every marathon starts with a single step. And these are cliches.
Yeah.
But they're cliche for a reason.
You
got to crawl before you walk. You know what I mean? And it's important to remember those cliches. And sometimes they might aggravate me when I'm beaten down by life, but at least I'm thinking about it. And maybe that aggravation will be a little bit of motivation. You see guys in the gym, they start slapping their chest, getting angry to lift that weight. Well, whether they're happy or angry, they're going to lift the freaking weight, so they're still accomplishing their goals. So sometimes anger can be a good motivator, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as you have a good hold on it and you know why you're using it, not to have just blind rage because something didn't go your way. That's unhealthy. But, you know, if you're trying to dunk a basketball and you keep catching the rim, you know, that anger can make you stay at the court a couple hours later. You know, maybe go home and YouTube, how can I make my calves stronger? Whatever. Like, use that shit for motivation as opposed to just, you know, accepting defeat. Because one way or another, time's going to keep pushing on. I remember one day I was having the worst fucking day of my life. And I'm like melting down and I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I give up. And I'm standing there, and as soon as I said I give up the second time, I kind of look around, and I'm like, give up what? Like, what? How am I just fucking cease to exist? Like, no, man, you're still standing here. Everything's still the same. And I started laughing at myself. It was one of the best belly laughs I can remember, because I'm just like, you fucking fool. Like, I give up. That's it. Well, you can't. There's no tapping out, man.
Well, there is. That's killing yourself.
Right.
But yeah, that's it.
But yeah, like if you want to keep it moving, or, you know, not end up on the other side of the ground, there is no giving up.
No.
There's just, you got to keep going, you know, whether you like it or not. So why not try to make the most out of your minutes? You know what I mean? Squeeze some juice out of life, and you know, the good times will come, and good times will pass. Same thing with hard times. You're gonna have good relationships, shitty relationships, you know. But yeah, I can't. I have to remember too not to base my current decisions on the assumption that, excuse me, things are going to be fantastic eventually, because maybe they won't, you know. But I can't let that discourage me either, because, like I said, I can't just stop. You know what I mean? When I'm going to hold my breath till I turn blue, like, that just doesn't work, man. You know, you got to keep it moving. You got to keep on pushing, and maybe things will go well, maybe not, but you just do the best you can. You know, don't make selfish decisions. Don't make destructive decisions. Just, you know, try to stay positive and get through the hard times.
Yeah, and learning again, you know, kind of wrapping things up, learning again to, you know, because like I've said before, how do I apply these things? I know all these things. I know I need to think more positively. I know I need to get back up and keep fighting. And you do that by constantly trying to be aware, constantly of trying to balance out the sayer and the critic in your head every time you think something. And once they can coincide, you become more truthful with yourself, and you work on it one stage at a time.
Right.
No matter what the shitty situation is, no matter what it is, no matter what you're going through, no matter how much pain, how much suffering, how much agony, how much you feel alone. Mm-hmm. If you start doing these things, that all of a sudden, you know, starts changing. You start seeing the better side of things. You start becoming more positive. And again, it's such a, you know, a cliche thing. You know, oh, think more positively. Oh, look, it's that easy, asshole. You know?
It is.
And
it is that easy. It might be uncomfortable and go against your nature at that moment because you're wound up and you're pissed off. And someone says, well, look at the bright side. Yeah. Go fuck yourself. How about that for a bright side? No, there's nothing more depressing than good advice.
Yeah.
I hate it, but it's true. You know, you're talking about, like, I can't help but bring up patience and how important patience is, because the payoff is not always immediate. Like, you know, we keep saying incremental growth, and these things, like, I learn these things, I know these things, and I'm applying it. So, like, what's going on? It's like if you want to glue two things together, you can lay the glue, you can push them together, but now you got to wait. It's out of your hands now. You got to let the glue do its thing, dry up, and now you got whatever you wanted to get out of that gluing process. You know what I mean? So patience for me is a big thing. I've gotten better with it, but I'm seeing more and more the value of it. I don't care for it all that much. I don't like being patient. I don't like waiting around, but I didn't write the book of time, you know? So I just got to roll with it. And that's just the way it is, you know? And sometimes I don't want to hear that, but it is what it is, you know?
It is what it is. And yeah, we got, again, 50 minutes in.
Really?
Already? Yeah,
oh,
50
shit.
minutes we got in here.
Well, you want to say a couple more things? You want to shut it down? What do you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of final thoughts. I mean, once again, learning to love the shitty times.
Learning to love the shitty times, grow through it, and if everything is bad around me, just appreciate the things that I do have, you know? Going to meetings, talking about it doesn't always make me feel good, but I looked forward to doing this. This is a luxury I have right now. Being able to come and, you know, be productive, do something I'm starting to get really passionate about, and hopefully we're going to get a lot better. I think we're doing okay, you know, but there's always room for growth, and that's exciting to me. And if I look back, like we're talking about not comparing to others, but to who we were a couple weeks ago, a couple days ago, whatever. Like, this is amazing. The way my life is right now compared to when I showed up at Detox with a couple bags of clothes, What a sad reflection in that door it was. I'm standing there in front of this glass door looking at myself. I've been up for days, no money, a couple bags of clothes. I have no, material gain right now. I'm not like financially doing great, but I'm healthy and things are going in the right direction, and a lot of that's been patience. Again, I fucking hate patience, but it's part of it.
Yeah, that's good shit, man. And once again, podcast number 2. I think it was more family oriented.
We're getting there.
More. We
We're
had some F-bombs here and there, but we're getting there. Don't worry, Horizon Village. We'll be there soon.
It's coming along. Patience.
We'll
be patient.
Our growth. Again, I kind of wanted to be more prepared for these. Again, I think we spent 10 minutes talking about what we were going to talk about today. Like, I kind of got mucked up a little bit. This awesome quote I read, sitting outside the courtroom today, and I was trying to find it. I'm like, son of a bitch, about failure and success and, all that. But
we'll get that on the next episode.
Yes, we're going to. Again, like I said before, like if we have time to spend days preparing for these podcasts or the interviews we're going to do, it's going to be badass, man.
Oh, yeah.
I think we got something good going.
I think we do.
We got to keep this going. So for now, again, we did 51 minutes right now we're at, and it felt like 2 seconds.
It did. Blew by.
So we are going to keep moving, bro.
All right.
So, all right. Well, for now, this is the Horizon Village podcast from addicts for addicts, and we will talk to you guys later on.
Peace.